Good evening. 7 o'clock, give or take. Yeah, and it's time for the rabble. Oh my. It's been an interesting week, always an interesting, but this week in particular. What an interesting week it's been, huh? We've had, the imbecile, the COVID queen, gangster's getaway driver, now joined by, I don't really know what he is. I think he claims to be a journalist, but I'll leave that for people to decide whether he is or not. Mr. Wilby, when will you learn? The people of my town, because this is my town. The people of my town will back me because they know what I'm talking about. And all the things I've been saying for the best part of a year is nothing other than the truth. And you people will never learn. Run off to Facebook, run off to the police, run along to whoever you want to try and shut us down. It's too late. It's much too late. I'm not sure what's going on with the credits. Let me try again. Is it going to work for us today? What's going on there? It doesn't matter. We can get going, can't we? Without the I do like it. I think I spent one night up all night learning how to use various bits of Adobe and stuff, and Final Cut in the end I think I used, because I didn't know how to use Adobe well enough to pull those opening credits together. So I'm not sure what's going on there. It was working before, and I don't want to really turn it off and turn it back on. Anyway, let's get on with today. If you can, there you go. If you can, please share. Say hello, and I see so many of you saying hello. I'm hearing it's 11 of us who watch this, and I know I think my mum watches it with my sister, so that knocks it down to about 9 of us who watch this, I suppose, and the rest are apparently Labour Party members, according to Sean Fielding, so that's fine by me. If it's half a dozen Labour Party members, a couple of my family friends, and the rest of you. Oh, Debbie sees 45 already. Oh, well, Debbie. And let's get on with it. So if you can share, please share. If you can and you haven't, sign up to the Patreon page. Give me £1 so I can keep this thing going for as long as I can. This evening has been, it's been an eventful week. I won't spend too much time on Mr. Wilby. I don't. My own reflections of it, looking at him, is I don't think he's fully there, but we'll cross that bridge when we get there. I want to start with Brian Hoban, actually, and I want to replay this if it works, because I'm not sure what's going on with my video, but I want to replay this if it works, because Brian's been in touch, and it's not good news when I last spoke to him, I'm afraid. Brian has been stonewalled by the Conservatives. He's repeatedly sent emails and tried to reach out to the Conservatives, and they've not got back to him. They've not even acknowledged his emails and stuff. And he's even tried to get in touch with some of the council officers to do with the council's business. And the way they've been treating him is equally appalling. And I think once we get our town back, and once we get control of our town back from this fake liberal metropolitan elite who come in and take 50, 60, 70, 100,000, 200,000 pounds a year from us, I don't think they'll do that again. These people are, as in the same way we need to get rid of some of these councillors, we need to get rid of these council officials who treat our elected members with contempt. And they treat them with contempt not because they're anything other than dared. They simply dared to ask a question and say, I will not remain silent whilst the children of my town are groomed and gang raped. And that's what Brian did. and now these people won't even, they're treating him with utter contempt. So I think it's only fair, if I can get this to work, only fair that we play Brian again. It's not letting me play any of my videos for some reason. There's a glitch in the system somewhere, but we'll manage without the videos for a while, and and we'll see where we end up. So let's say a few hellos to people, and put some hellos up on the board. So Dougie, hi, yeah, rabble time, yeah. I mean, what did he think he was going to do by calling us rabble? Good evening, Gary. Gary is much more sensible and all of. So good evening, Gary. Paul, good evening, Paul. We tried earlier. We got you on Skype. We tested everything, so hopefully it works. If it doesn't work, I'm going to have to reset it and try again and turn things on again. But we'll try again. So I put a link up right at the beginning. So if it says this when I'm transferring you across, it's because you've not given permission. So you need to give permission. I put a link up earlier. And I put a link up earlier in the week. So that's why that's happening. Julie, hi. Anita, hi. Anita is one of our patrons. She joins us on a Thursday. This Thursday, Anita wasn't nibbling on her tea. Anita, I actually thought, I honestly did think on the Thursday morning I was in a police station, which I'll share. I'll give feedback about later on in the evening. But I remember the messages I was getting at the time was that they were trying to shut us down. Now, let's put this in context. How would anyone shut down a private meeting of like-minded individuals who are gathering virtually to talk about issues? Why is that a police matter? Why is that a Facebook matter? Actually, we weren't even advertising it on Facebook. It's a Zoom meeting. If I want to sit down in a pub or in a bar or in a community centre with half a dozen friends of mine in this country, last I looked, I am still entitled to do that. Good evening. Yeah, good evening. Caroline. Lee, Mark and Kath, we had both of them join us on Thursday, and I think both spoke really, really well. And at some point, I'm going to get Mark on this transmission of ours, because I would very much like to. I'm not sure why Mark and Kath are calling me, but I'll yeah. Yes, David, let's see if we can get it up to 15 viewers indeed. I mean, what's his fascination? If it was 6 of my mates and me having a chat on a Sunday night during lockdown virtually, what's it got to do with him? What on earth has it got to do with him? Yeah, so, no, I don't know. And Debbie, who I spoke to this morning, Debbie uses a strange... she doesn't send me text messages. Sometimes she sends me voice messages, and I'm always hesitant to listen to voice messages because I think someone's going to tell me off. But no, Debbie didn't tell me off. She just her fingers didn't move as fast as she speaks. Paul, believe it or not, Paul criticised for saying, Paul, what is this nonsense? It wouldn't matter with it, Paul. I mean, I'll find Paul's post and I'll put it up. It wouldn't matter with it, Paul. It wouldn't matter if 8,000, 9,880 or even 8, it wouldn't matter at all. What is up with this man, and what is up with these guys? Now, I am going to try and move on. Lots of hellos, and thank you. And thank you very, very much for the Now, I actually have NIEL WILBY blocked, and I have him blocked on. And what's the best way of doing this? Let me press that, and that should come up, and I should be able to get rid of myself. There you go. So I actually have him blocked, and I have him blocked because he was abusive. And he sent me this, and he wanted comments and stuff. But unfortunately, Paul Taylor gives him a platform on Oldham Heart. Now, Paul, I ain't got much time for Paul. I struggle with him, if I'm honest, and I'm not going to put up the post I shared on Thursday with the patrons as to how Paul described people. Yeah, I've got that, and I'll save that for another day if I feel compelled to use it. I'd rather not attack people of my town. Now, this isn't an issue with all the people on Oldham Heart who post on Oldham Heart, and I have nothing but admiration for him, really, based upon what I was sent to me. So he's given this Wilby guy a platform. Now, Paul's going on about defending free speech, but the contradiction in him defending free speech is that he's promoting a guy who wants me banned, who wants me arrested, who wants me silenced. So maybe Paul can square that circle with the people he talks cryptically to on his page, but it's not one for me. I'm far too simple a person to understand that level of and that sophistication of politics. But wasn't it great? Did anyone else follow it? Wasn't it great? I sat back, and it was Gary Tarbuck who sent me some images and of screen grabs, and of course the and Moyab did actually. Moyab spent a morning reading every post, and he phoned me up and he wanted to read every post, and he got a mullering, didn't he? He got an absolute mullering from the people of my town. And in the end, he was threatening to sue people and all sorts because they gave him what for. Yeah. Now, let's have a look at this very, very quickly. I've written some notes, and I'll go through the notes with them, but very, very quickly. The funniest thing with all of this is he actually admits in all of this that is written to a guy called Kieran. And Kieran I've never met. He's just one of the internet followers. And Kieran, he admits to Kieran that he's never even spoken to Arooj Shah during the course of this article of his. Did you, Mr NIEL WILBY? So if only Madam Mayor, in defence of Arooj Shah, where I'm, portrayed as a misogynist and all sorts of other things, he admits afterwards that he didn't even speak to her. So going off this, it's clear to me he spoke to either Gail Granger, whose husband was shot dead, and I've shared my indifference regardless of what she thinks. And the other lad was clearly Mr. Irish Jimmy himself, the Dale Cregan's getaway driver. Regardless of whether he likes it or not, and whether NIEL WILBY likes it or not, that's what he was, Dale Cregan. So it seems that he must have got his information from these two. Now, this is a now infamous council meeting, yeah? And this now infamous council meeting where I've supposed to have said something I clearly didn't. And I've got something, and I'll bring up on the screen. And he goes through with all of this. Yeah, you can see that. And this was the first of, I'm told, 4 articles. But you can see all of that. It's all in his webpage. People should look at it. There's something he did. Neil, you've done me a favour because you got me some information I think the people of my town will be really interested in. Won't they, Jim? And he goes on Jim, Gelato's Ice Lounge, how she was, how she lost her seat because the Pakistanis in Glodick turned on her, and she reckons it was misogyny. Everything's misogyny in the same way everything's racist these days, it seems. So that's what took place. But let me view it this way. So here you go. Oldham I sent me this, and Debbie, Oldham I sent me a message this morning. Apparently he's unblocked you on Twitter. I have no idea why he blocked you on Twitter or why he's now decided to unblock you on Twitter. So And I remember you mentioned it to me. So that there's an upgrade regarding Brian from Mark, and so maybe that's why they tried to phone me. Let me see if I can phone her and let me see if it works. And then we'll see what this update looks like. I'm just talking, so don't mind me. Hiya, Mark. I'm just connecting you to this machine. There you go.
Did you get me message?
I have not read anything, Mark, because I am useless at multitasking. So I thought I'd call you back, and you're coming through my headphones. So I'm hoping people can hear you. So fire away.
Right, just a quickie for you, Raj. And I know you updated people in relation to Brian and his motion for the 4th of November. That has now been seconded by Conservatives.
Have they seconded it? Because he sent me something to say they'd not even talked to him and they'd not even responded. So that's brilliant. So excellent.
Yeah, it only came through yesterday. So the motion has been put forward to the administration for mention on the 4th of November at full council.
You know, that's brilliant because what this means, Mark. So everyone in so my 9 friends who listen in with me on this are clear. It means that a recorded vote will have to take place, and every one of these councillors on their screens, because we'll all be tuning into the Muppet Show Zoom thing that they do or whatever it is, we'll all be tuning in, and they'll all have to do a recorded vote where they have to decide which side they're on, whether they're on the side of the sham of an inquiry, or whether they will vote to have this matter referred to the government. Now, Mark, it's been a year, hasn't it? It's been a year or over a year since the first inquiry was announced.
Well, that's right. Yeah, it has been over a year. But it seems as though Brian's getting somewhere now. I think the Tories have done the right thing to come on board.
Brilliant, absolutely brilliant. I'm not political like that, Mark. Hands up. Hands up. If I can turn the camera back on so people can see me. There you go. Absolutely brilliant. Well done. Credit where credit's due. They've took their time, but they've come out and backed it.
Update, Brian.
Yeah. Brilliant. Thanks, Mark.
Brian offers his apologies, but he is working at the moment, or else he would have rang himself.
It's all right. It's no problem. He's got a job. He's a working counsellor. It's fine. It's no problem whatsoever. Yeah. Okay.
All right.
Listen, I'm chuffed that the video's not working, but I managed to get you managed to phone you off the cuff, and your sound came through. So I'm smiling. So that's a result for me. That is, Mark. You take care, Mark, and we're gonna have you on soon. We're gonna have you on whenever you're ready. Yeah, whenever you're ready. Thank you, Mark. All right.
Thanks, Brad.
Bye.
Bye.
So, brilliant news. I think that's absolutely brilliant news. They are going to have to vote. Whether they like it or not, they are going to have to vote. Right. Mr. Wilby. Let's get on with this and let's get through this very, very quickly. Mr. Wilby calls me a misogynist. Mr. Wilby likes to repeatedly put the photographs of women's breasts or comment on women's breasts. Don't you, NIEL WILBY, you dirty man? NIEL WILBY admits in an exchange with someone else that Arud Shah had nothing to do with the article. Nothing to do with the article. Isn't that right, Neil? So she didn't write it. She didn't give you quotes from it. So where did you get those quotes from, Neil? Was it Gail Granger? Was it Irish Imi? Was it someone else? Oh, yes. I've got to bring this up. Yes, indeed. That's exactly what it is, Mark Birchall. And within seconds of him putting it up, here we are. Mr. Irish Imi. This article deserves to be shared by all. Everyone needs to read this article, especially you cowards who stayed quiet whilst one of Oldham's few sincere councillors was bullied by those in our community. Shame on you all, and well done to Councillor Arooj Shah for never giving up on Oldham. Now the problem with Councillor Arooj Shah is when she stood up and did this, this is her direct quote, he also indicated in other posts that he has an inbox full of stories about my personal life, and he makes threats to publish these. Arooj Shah, and so there is no doubt, Arooj Shah is a liar. I am calling the Deputy Leader of Oldham Council a liar. Sue me, go running to the police, do whatever you want, and you're a liar because of what I'm going to show right next, and it's still on my Facebook page. And the way Facebook works is if I've edited anything, the edit history comes up on the post and all, you know. So, no, Miss Shah, you're a liar. You're nothing but a liar. Liar, liar, liar. And you're a liar because this is what I wrote on the 10th of October 2019. 10th of October 2019, where I detailed my issues with Arooj Shah, including her endorsement of my murder. But have a look at the bit that is circled, number 4. Arooj Shah's link to Dale Cragen. Yes, you have read that right. Now, first of all, remember, this is a bit where she misquotes and misinterprets on purpose without a shadow of a doubt. She's not stupid. She understands English. First of all, let me make something very clear. I have absolutely no interest in Arooj Shah's private life. I have an inbox full of stories about her personal life. I'm not interested in any of them. I myself am fully aware of the abuse that someone from the Asian community faces when they choose not to follow a traditional lifestyle. And I go on. Right? How does she get this from what I've said? Anybody? You can't, can you? Nah. It's no different than that idiot Sean Fielding ranting racism. Now it's misogyny. What next? What next? Of course, when Wilby says I then criticise her for a response to COVID-19, everyone who has followed these transmissions and my posts knows that I'm not been criticising Arooj Shah at all in her response to COVID-19. I've been criticising this numpty here who went on his holidays for 2 weeks. That's who I've been criticising. I've been criticising the chief exec, Dr. Carolyn Wilkins, who took a secondment 3 days a week or whatever it is. Yeah, absolutely. No, yeah. Yes, Debbie, she is a liar. Absolute liar. And yes, Rocky, he knows all about bullying, doesn't he? Yeah, he's the coward. And I got another phone call. I got another phone call on Wednesday via someone senior enough in the council, actually. I don't know what the fascination is with all of these people who want to know where I live. Is that supposed to scare me? We're looking for you. He wants to know where you live. She wants to know where you live. They want to know where you live. This isn't Pakistan. This isn't Bangladesh or Iraq or somewhere. No. It doesn't work like that here, lads. Bugger off. As if I'm scared of you. Yeah. And of course, and we have... So yeah, I never went after a bit for the COVID thing at all. I went after him. And that's why I went after him. Because he claimed that people were spreading misinformation. It's not misinformation now, is it? Day after day after day, the reports keep coming out. And the rates in Oldham, we all know where it's peaking. Every one of us knows where it's peaking. But instead you went out to Royton, you went out to Failsworth, you went out to all the places that didn't have a problem to try and distract. Yeah, distract from what? Distract from your core block vote. Any complaints about my targeting of Arooj Shah and her association with criminals? How many of you knew? Before I posted it, how many of you knew? Forget Dale Cregan's getaway driver. There's that devout Muslim woman who follows her faith, according to the article, sat there in a car with a married man and a young family. Is that right? Have I got that wrong? Because that's he'll come up later. Her younger brother, I ain't got an issue with him. You know, he's young. He laundered money. He got put in prison. What about the other one? Convicted kidnapper, gang member who tortured and sexually abused his victims. The people of my town have a right to know, and the council officers and the police have a right to know, because then they will make informed decisions of whether or not they want to work with her. Because I wouldn't want to work with her. That's not misogyny. I wouldn't want to work with her because of her associates. Because I wouldn't trust her ability to keep her mouth shut. Or for a mistake to be made and leave a piece of paper or something where, so tough. And apparently, according to Mr. NIEL WILBY, no wonder he pays damages, Paul. He wasn't Dale Cregan's getaway driver. Well, why don't you go and sue the Manchester Evening News? I'll enjoy it if you sue the Manchester Evening News, because I don't like them much either. But the getaway driver police killer Dale Cregan has been recalled to prison. Of course, he's the getaway driver, Dale Cregan. He then picks on this guy. And he picks on this guy. And I'll go back to the I'll go back to the article, because I want to bring this up in the article. So let me see if I can do this properly. And I don't want what I've got it on, which is that. I want it on that. There was this posted on the MEN, and it was sent to me, actually. It was sent to me. I never saw it. I don't follow the MEN that well. It was sent to me, and I shared it at the time. But someone appeared to give an insight into Arooj Shah's historical history, and a name Shani was mentioned. Now, I've never said anything about Shani because Shani's my friend. I went to school with him, and I've never hidden that, and he's never hidden that. And if I wanted to ask Shani anything, I'd call him because I've got his number in my phone, and he'd call me because he's got my number in his phone. So that's that. But according to this by Wilby, and if I was Shani, I'd sue the guy. I'd absolutely sue him. He says this of him. Shanwaz Kumar, for that is Shani, subjected Arooj Shah to an obsessive, persistent and unpleasant campaign of highly personalised harassment and stalking. But then in his next line, he was not prosecuted for these activities. What I want to know was, did Arooj Shah provide NIEL WILBY with this statement, or did this statement come from someone else? Because here is Arooj Shah standing next to Shani's brother, the former mayor. Yeah, so that's who Shani is. Shani's as much of a card-carrying Labour guy as anyone else in that part of the world. And his older brother was the former mayor. So if this was true, Arooj Shah, did you say this? Because if you didn't, you need to come out and distance yourself. Because it's not fair on this gentleman. Now, what happened then is this great investigative journalist apparently loved it, that apparently the foolish Raja handed us the gift of now knowing Shani and you were knowing Shani and he were friends in secondary school, sat opposite each other in class. Yeah, we were. Absolutely. It's not a secret, you muppet, investigative journalist. I have friends in Glodick, I have friends in Coldust, Werner, Sholver, I have friends all over the place. It's my town. I went to school with this lad. Now, if he's done something to Arood Shah in the way you suggest he has, where have you got that from? Because this is the younger brother of the former mayor. Come on, where have you got that from? Is it from Gail Granger? Did Arood Shah tell Gail Granger? Or is it from Irish Emmy? Where have you come up with this? Because it's not fair on this lad. He then whinges. He whinges, does he, boy? Does he whinge? Apparently, you can see that, can't you? Yeah, apparently I stood him up for lunch and he had a wasted 65-mile journey. You can see there, I was never invited to lunch and he never had a meeting with me for lunch. Hi Raj, I'm meeting NIEL WILBY on Friday for lunch and wondered if you wanted to come along. Around the 22nd of July. Those of you remember the 22nd of July or around that time? Full on lockdown, all the schools were closed, the summer holiday was coming. People who know me know I've got a very young daughter who I treasure and value every moment I spend with. And look at my response. Would ordinarily love to, but I have. Now, I've blocked out my daughter's name. On Fridays and Saturdays. I am very much looking forward to meeting him one day, though. Is that unpleasant? Is that unreasonable? No. Okay, you could bring her, but I understand if you're not able to. Once you meet my daughter, you'll see that she has a mind entirely of her own. Anyone else got a 5-year-old or a very, very young child to remember? They have minds entirely of their own. It's very difficult to plan anything. Anyway, I'll try and pass by and say hello. And the truth was, I had very little intention of passing by and saying hello because it was during the lockdown. And why would I take my 5-year-old daughter to meet a complete stranger? Would any of you? So clearly I didn't go to the meeting. Response. I met NIEL yesterday and he was asking me where you wanted to take this next. I.e. story about grooming, corruption, finances at OMBC. I asked him what you said when you spoke to him, but I didn't realise that you hadn't had a conversation with him. I'm concerned that NIEL could go cold on us without some direction about where you want this to go. I don't want this to go anywhere, and I've made that clear. I'm not politically interested. I don't want to write a story and make myself famous. I'd be happy to go back to working with children again next week, next year, whenever I can, and doing all of those things that put a smile on my face. I don't want to be in this position where I am. And that's the truth. I have no interest of being in this position that I now find myself in. But I found myself in this place, so I'll do the best I can by the people of my town, and the people of my town can see that, which is why they slapped him on the Oldham Heart page. It's a good question, Mark. It's a really, really good question. So there you go. Apparently I stood him up. Anyone believe that? No. And of course, we'd arranged a time to talk, and he didn't call. Look, that's from the 25th of July. That's my response on the 25th of July. Apparently I stood him up, and then I didn't call him when I'd arranged. No, you'd arranged to call me. I phoned you up and gave you my phone number. I texted you my phone number. We'd arranged a time to talk, and he didn't call. He didn't like the response he got. And when we're doing our patron Zoom chat on Thursday night, I was getting all of these messages. And he's threatening people. Harassing or defamatory material has been meticulously logged. Tracing agent will find those who have posted offensively. You muppet. Tracing agent will find those who have posted offensively. You're the one who's posted offensively, calling the people of my town rabble repeatedly. And to continue his harassment, because this is what it is. I had nothing to do with any of this because I blocked him. He finds a picture of me and puts it up because he's also put a link on somewhere. And if people followed any of this historically, they'll see Tahir Mushtaq, the Mushtaq brother, did this as well. They hate the fact I have this MBE. Now, I got the MBE when I was 29 years old, and I served my country. I served my country all over the bloody world, working with terrorists and all sorts of stuff, and I never expected anything from it, but the Queen decided she was going to give me a medal, and my mum has it. It's as simple as that. It was my mum's best day. It was a day out for her. Anyway, I couldn't care less about this thing, Neil. But what's your obsession with wanting to take my MBE off me? The people of my town couldn't care less if I've got an MBE or not. Rocky, I have no idea what a tracing agent is. I don't think he does either. So he puts a picture up of me outside the Children's Society in Holts, where I worked for 4 or 5 years. Yeah, I came back. I actually gave up a job overseeing millions and millions of pounds elsewhere. And I came back to my own town because I wanted to come back to my own town at the time. And I came and got a job on Holts Village. And I had a great time on Holts Village for 4 or 5 years that I was there. So you put a picture up. Anyway, Neil, it's a nice picture. I forgot, my hair's blacker than it. You know, Julie, if people just took their own time doing their own thing, the world would be a better place. I never judge my success by other people's failures, and I don't understand how people want to drag people down. I never got that, and I never will get that. And yeah, is that what he did, Mark? He threatened you when you called him a male chauvinist. Yeah, he's a strange one. He's an absolute strange one. I've seen a post I just want to put up because it means a lot to me. Just here we go. This is my friend Levi. Levi and I worked together. I was in my early 20s when you and I worked together. I think you were my age, give or take, or maybe even younger at the time. I don't think I remember myself even in my early 20s being a misogynist or a male chauvinist. It's just it just wasn't in me, and it isn't me at all. So this is him, Numpty. Carries on. Oh, I'm sorry. He's now arranged to meet one of the victims, who has been texting me, and I blocked her. I'll be honest with you. She's Sam. She's called Sam. I wrote about her on the stuff on the webpage, Sam's story. It's one of the first ones, and I blocked her because she's now a friend with Irish Yimmy, and for her own good, I blocked her actually because I didn't want them accessing me through her, so I blocked her. And someone phoned me last night and said she was meeting NIEL WILBY, so she's arranged to meet NIEL WILBY on Monday. So you can see my response to her. Someone mentioned it to me, and I checked with Debbie, who confirmed it. You're a grown woman. You're old enough to make your own decisions. With a thumbs up. Is there any offence in that comment? Anyway, this was her response. You're a grown man. You can take it if I punch you in the face, you hypocrite. So, good luck, Sam. You chat to NIEL WILBY all you want. I feel for you, and I'll never fall out with you, and I'll never say a bad word about you, and I'm not going to argue with you. You've gone through enough in life. Right, that is that. But then he posts again. Apparently, I've had this rant. Peacemaker has a rant about Shoot to Kill. What I said was I was indifferent. I was ambivalent. I couldn't care less. And I couldn't care less. And he then goes and gets hold of this guy's dad, who then has a go at me. This is Yasser Yaqub, the guy from Huddersfield. He was shot dead by the police in the car. The police found a gun in the car. There was also other criminals in the car, and they all got put in prison. They shot him dead. The policeman felt he had no choice. Yeah. I don't care. But there is something, thanks to NIEL, there's something from here that I think we'll get to. And just the last thing, let me just track back because this bit is important. Because I couldn't get to the bottom of it. NIEL's tried to twist it, but I couldn't get to the bottom of it. But NIEL, the investigative journalist, has got to the bottom of it. Jim McMahon did indeed write a letter of support for Irish Jimmy whilst he was in prison or out on bail. There you go. Horse's mouth. Jim McMahon wrote a letter of support. Read it on his article. It's buried in his article, but it's there. Now the question is, do you think Jim McMahon would have done that for Tommy Robinson or someone else? I don't. And apparently Arud Shah had nothing to do with it and had no knowledge of it. It's there. I think it's nonsense. I think it just shows, and I'm entitled to this opinion, I think it just shows how high these networks go. How high these networks go. And I put this up. This guy, Mansour Hussain, had to hand over £10 million. Unexplained wealth order, £10 million in property. He had houses everywhere, Knightsbridge everywhere. £10 million. He had, yeah. Yeah, Debbie, he did that, didn't he? Would you do that? Would any of you do that? I don't think so. I wouldn't have written a reference or any letter of support of any kind for a guy who drove away Dale Cregan. No, I wouldn't have done it. Anyway, this guy, and there's a name mentioned in this article of £10 million. It's a gangster called Meggie. Meggie Khan. Let me see if I can get this video going. If I can get this video going, it'd be brilliant. But if I can't... No idea. I'll put the video up later on a post and you can see it for yourselves, but it's not from me. But it shows the link between this guy called Meggie Khan and this guy. They all hated each other and there were drug barons between them. And then there were drug barons. This lad was arrested by an armed response unit in Oldham. So one of the main gangsters, one of the main Asian gangsters in the north of England, when he was on the run, rocked up to Wearmouth, I think it was. I don't think it made the news here. But then, we don't even find out about paedophile politicians, do we here? It doesn't make the news. But Meggie Khan was arrested by an armed response unit in Oldham. And Dale Cregan's grenades. The stash was found in a drain in Oldham, in Glodick, Oldham. There you go. The M75 ordnance used in the Yugoslav Civil War in the 90s were found in Onchen Avenue, Glodick. No, the cartels don't run our town, do they? They don't have any influence. Is Jim McMahon going to explain what reference he wrote or what letter he wrote and why? And whether he was aware at the time who this man was? How would any of you feel? Because if you follow through Wilby's line of thought, you'd do this for a paedophile. You'd have to do this for him. You wouldn't do this. There's no way you'd do this. You have some explaining to do, Jim. Which brings me to... I think let's see if this works. Let's try and get Paul up. Brilliant. Paul, you there? Yeah?
Hello there.
Oh, perfect, mate. Sorry, I'm laughing to myself because I had all this working. You know, I had the videos working and stuff, but they're not to be. But you're here, Paul. Brilliant.
Hello.
Now,
Good evening.
Paul, Proud of Oldham Saddleworth. You were at the first meeting of your guys I went to, so...
oh, perfect, mate. Sorry, I'm laughing.
You'll have to turn that off on the other end, Paul. Yeah, brilliant, brilliant. So you and I have met a few times, haven't we? We haven't, we don't know each other, but we've met a few times at, at the Springhead Liberal Club. Yeah.
Certainly, yes.
Yeah,
yes.
so that's your, I got the impression it's where you go and play your pool and it's your kind of local there, yeah? So you're very local to that part of the world, aren't you? It's yours.
Definitely,
it's your community. It's your neighbourhood, yeah?
Yeah.
Tell me more, Paul. Tell me about yourself.
So you probably tell them, if you hear my accent, I'm a Manchester boy, born and bred in Manchester, but moved to Rochdale for a while, but then moved to Oldham for work. I worked at North Manchester General Hospital, 1995, up till we had to move to Oldham in order to have a localised pathology service. So that's when I moved to Leeds in 2005. So I've been in Oldham since 2005.
So 15 years, yeah?
Yeah,
I'll let you off. I'll say that's long enough for you to,
Oh, definitely, yeah. So this is my community, and I have currently been doing everything I can for my community. Back in 2009, I joined Greater Manchester Police as a special constable, and I chose to serve where I lived. And I was a special constable for 5 years, and I served all the communities of Oldham, Oldham Town Centre, Werneth, Coldhurst, Lees, Alt, everywhere you can think of. I've served as a foot patrol police officer. And I will always say it was one of the best community experiences I've ever had. It's fantastic. The police are not visible, and I was always a visible person as a special constable. And they always kept saying to me, "Thank God you're on the streets for me." And to me, that's the only way you can do policing. So that was up until, sadly, that was up until 2014. I had to give that up due to work commitments. I wasn't able to carry on doing the hours that was required.
You do, and you've got a serious job, haven't you? It's a serious job,
Oh, definitely.
And
yeah,
it's not to belittle others, but it's a serious job you do, yeah.
Yeah. So I am now an advanced biomedical scientist in microbiology at the Royal Oldham Hospital. So I do live and work in the area that I am living in. And currently at the moment now, we are absolutely bombarded. We're looking at 1,200 tests for COVID.
So you did a COVID test, yeah? That's what your job is.
We are doing the actual testing. So back in February, before the lockdown even started, we were still working out a process in order to allow us to do the testing, and we were working how could we do all this testing to meet the demand, and that process has happened on a daily basis. It literally is management on a daily basis, and I'm not just somebody who's just following the instructions. I'm somebody who's actually in charge of that role. I am pushing the team in order to get the test done, and we are looking at we've changed our working patterns just to meet these COVID testing. We're used to do we're pushing 12 hours a day constantly. People are working.
I've got to ask you, and I can't make sense of it, right? For a bit, there was a national shortage in tests, yeah? In these testing kits, yeah? To process every test costs money. It must do, from the test itself to the process, yeah? What is it with this town, which is different to what other towns and cities were doing? We're like, come and have a test whether you've got any symptoms or not, and I'll knock on your door and make you have a test or try and encourage you to have a test. What's that about? I mean, what's the logic behind it? Because if I've tested you on a Monday, it doesn't mean you've not got it on a Tuesday, does it? What's the... You explain it to me, because I'm just a common bloke who's working at this, and it doesn't make sense.
Well, ultimately, ideally, what people need to do is, if you've got symptoms, you need testing. You can't just randomly just pick a load of people and say, right, we'll just test you, because therefore we're going to tick a box to say you've been tested. You need to look where the actual disease is, and that's where you need to focus on. You need to focus on that disease in order to put your restrictions in place. Now, if you do a blanket approach, that's pointless, because the people who are not affected are going, oh, what's the problem? What's the problem? Why am I affected? Why am I affected? It's not to do with me. I've not been out of my house for 3 weeks. Why am I involved? That's not fair.
No,
epidemiology is based upon finding the disease, and the disease is COVID in certain areas. Now, that's a fact of life. It's not labelling, it's a fact of life. This is what we have to cope with. And we have to cope with this. We have to learn from history. Spanish flu, plague, cholera, it was all people looking at where the disease started or where the disease is, and you focus on it. We're not labelling anybody, we're just saying where the increase of cases are.
I read something a couple of weeks ago, and I pointed this out right from the beginning, and I was upset for my friends in Brighton when the council directed Sky News and the police to go into Brighton when the cases were single figures with fingers to spare, on one hand with fingers to spare, and the cases at the time were high in Werneth, they're high in what I call Glodick and Westwood and Calderst, and they changed the name of these areas.
Yeah.
And they'd created a new demographic indicator, which was multi-generational households. And at the time, I thought they were doing a disservice to these people, because it was where it was, like it is now with universities and young people. Yeah. And
exactly.
And so you've got to target where it's peaking and where it's spiking, and you've got to be colourblind and race blind, and you've just got to deal with it because it affects all of us. Now, unfortunately, in our town, everything's racialized, isn't it? Because they spun it and they made it look like, and I have, most of my friends are still Asian, and they talk to me about it, and like, oh, it's racism, isn't it? The way they're picking at us and the rest of the town's looking at us. And I'm like, of course it's not racism. You've got to protect yourself and you've got to protect everyone else. It's the same analogy with wearing the mask. So what is it? I mean, this town, they just racialize everything.
It's a known
they just
fact.
racialize everything.
Well, it's a known fact that, and it's a documented fact that tuberculosis is a well-known risk factor is certain communities.
Yeah.
One of the certain communities would be an Asian community. That's a certain community because they live close together. This time of year, student areas, they're going to be susceptible to meningitis. That's a known fact. We know this. This is what we know. This is what epidemiology is about, and we can't argue with facts of science.
No,
you can't argue. That's what I mean. So you can't say, well, it's across the board. Well, it's not across the board. It is in certain areas. Certain areas are close-knit communities. Certain areas are farmland.
Yeah.
So to say it's spread across the board is not true.
No, it's not true.
It's not true across Oldham.
And diseases discriminate because they genetically, they do discriminate. I've never come across an equal opportunities disease. They discriminate.
Well, COVID is known to affect males more than females. Well, that's not sexist.
No.
That's the disease's choice. That's COVID's choice.
No, I agree with you. It's like I think in the earlier days, I remember arguing with friends of mine who were like, it's racism. I was saying, no, it's not. If people from my background, my demographic background have vitamin D deficiency, or we've got something in our genetics, we got diabetes as a link and all that, and if these are underlying factors, then they're underlying factors.
Yeah.
Because what we're trying to do is protect these people. We're not targeting these people. We're trying to protect them.
Well, exactly. There's a famous example in terms of sickle cell. Sickle cell is exclusive to a certain ethnic group. Genetically, it's supposed to be protection against malaria. However, sickle cell, if it's a recessive gene in terms of the disease, it's a killer. But then it doesn't affect another ethnic group because that's the way genetics are. But then that's the way disease affects.
Yeah. So you've got this serious job, and before we move on to politics, and I know people are interested, so it looks like we might be going into lockdown again. The numbers aren't going down. What would you do, Paul? I mean, I'm sorry to put you on the spot, but you're clearly an expert and you have an opinion, and I don't want to have you lose votes, but people speak to me all the time, and I ain't got a clue apart from stay safe. But what would you do?
Sadly, I think you have to look at the fact that once lockdown is eased, then the cases will always go up, and that's because despite every measure that people do, people can't fail to interact. So the best thing that ever happened was the total lockdown we had from March up for, what was it, 2 months, 3 months? We had a total
3 months,
lockdown.
yeah, 3 months, yeah.
That was fantastic because it brought the figures down. But then if you watch what's happened in the rest of Europe, then all those figures have gone up because everyone started interacting again. We need to learn from history. History has told us that at some point we need to just accept the fact that we need to be exposed to the virus. We may or may not get a vaccine, but we can't carry on like this. But we do need to protect those who are vulnerable. We've got to protect the vulnerable people. We need to identify those people. That's something that we possibly can't do 100% because we don't know what underlying factors people have got. But we do need to protect those people who we feel are most vulnerable. And I would say we just need to crack on as normal because obviously the businesses, the social environment, the interactions that we're having, we're losing all that. And I think mental health problems are going sky high.
You saw the post I put up about my daughter, yeah? And I think there's a generation of children like that who are really apprehensive because, they feel it around them, don't they? She's not cuddled her grandma in 6 months.
Yeah, if you think back in the day, though, people with their children, as soon as somebody had chickenpox, you took them in and go, like, let's have a bath. Let's have a party. Get that immunity in. Now, I know it's basic science of immunity, and can we have the immunity to the COVID virus? But we will over time, because we always have done. We had immunity to all kinds of things back in 1918, 1920. We had immunity to Spanish flu, and we're still getting it now. We're still seeing it.
So your strategy, and for me to summarise it before we move on to the Proud of Oldham stuff, is really, hold on, those who are vulnerable that we can identify as vulnerable, put whatever steps we need in to safeguard them and provide them with the financial support that they need.
Exactly.
Yeah? And the rest of us who've had it or who might have it, who in the main will be okay with it, even if we caught it.
Yeah, we need
to get on with it. Yeah.
Yeah,
because
we need to crack on.
Yeah.
And then we've still got the capacity in the NHS to cover those people that we don't know about, who will have that debilitating illness. We need to fight that, especially this time of year as well, because we've got influenza coming in or the other respiratory viruses coming in. It's a bad time of year to have a virus we don't know about.
And it makes no sense then, does it? I mean, we're right, aren't we? All of us who look at it, to test people who aren't even showing symptoms is a complete waste of resources, isn't it?
Well, exactly, because, what's it showing? It's showing a virus that's just it's been a transmission to somebody else. So it's like contact tracing. It's like saying who's got meningitis. Well, meningitis is something. The bacteria is something that's part of everybody's normal body. We all carry that bacteria, but then for it to actually do something. Same thing with the virus. The fact that it's not doing anything, it just passes on to people. So it's not proving anything to say somebody's positive. They've got no symptoms. They're not necessarily going to pass it on. This is no different to rhinovirus, the common cold, in terms of transmission.
How it's transmitted. Yeah.
Well, exactly. I know people have now got a common cold who are scared to death because they think they've got COVID.
Well, you saw I laughed at myself. I've had a cold for the best part of 2 weeks with this, and I laughed. I did, and I had conversations like, you might have COVID. I'm like, no, I've had the common cold all my life. I know what a common cold is. I get a snotty nose. I feel miserable, and then I'm all right. I have a bit of chicken soup or whatever, and some tablets, and it's fine.
Well, there you go. And but how many people are concealing those symptoms because they're scared to death because they think, I've got COVID. I'm going to be labelled as a COVID positive.
Yeah.
Or somebody who's just, I've just been tested positive. What does that mean? What does that mean?
No. My daughter got sent home from school for 2 weeks, and she's looking forward to her next two-week COVID break. So,
exactly.
the kids have worked it out. Yeah.
Yeah.
No. Of course. Okay. Let me put up a picture. You don't want to see a picture. I'm going to put a picture of you, and you're Proud of Oldham Saddleworth. So what? I say this to everyone who I have on, like you, and I had Mark on, and I've had Paul on before. Why would you become a politician and stick your neck out for all of this?
Well, my journey began in August 2017 because I was, I'd served my time as a police officer, so I'd served in the community. I achieved a lot of stuff. I achieved a lot of stuff in the community, and I felt proud of that. And especially by being a police officer where I lived, because a lot of people said you can't do that because it's dangerous, it's scary.
It's dangerous to be a police officer and serve. Yeah, is that what they said?
Well,
yeah?
It's dangerous to be a police officer and live where you are serving. So I was doing foot patrols across my street, and the police officers were saying to me that's dangerous to do that, and I went, well, I'm prepared to take that risk because I believe about my community. I choose to live here. I choose to fight for my community in terms of crime, and nothing happened. I never had any problems. It was fine. So that was up until 2014, and then in 2017, there was the Save Our Valleys situation occurred in terms of a proposed development for Knowles Lane, 256 houses and a link road. And to me, I was devastated. I was devastated by that. I went to the meeting, and there was a member there named Mr Steve Irvine, who I believed was a member of the Russell Holmes group.
So this is the chief planner of Oldham Council, who was suspended for gross misconduct.
Yeah, it turned
then
out
quietly resigned and left, and no one's ever told us what he left for.
Yeah, my opinion was, by his demeanour and behaviour, was that he was a member of the developers,
and not the council lead planner. No,
exactly. No, I'd never seen him before. I didn't know who he was, and then in later years, I realised that he was the head of planning, and I was like, really? This is outrageous. So in that time, we were fighting the Knowles Lane development because we were doing petitions, etc., blah blah blah, and then when we had the extraordinary planning meeting of July the 1st, 2019. I was devastated to see the desecration of due process because it was an absolute nightmare. It was ridiculous. I've never seen anything in a public chamber ever before in my life. The fact that vote was passed through, despite the fact it had about 4 votes, of one of which 2 people were saying, I'm voting against it, and then the chief of the meeting, the chairman, said it's unanimous. 4.
So I saw that video. And I didn't know what was going on at the time because I just got back into town and stuff, and it was shared. And I remember watching it, and they were all whispering into each other's ears, and
well, exactly.
That's the meeting, isn't it? And yeah.
Absolute nonsense. The chair apparently was its first time ever doing a chair. It was being whispered in ear by the solicitor. The council solicitor, telling what to do.
Mr Paul Entwistle.
Exactly, yeah. He's the council solicitor. And he wasn't following due process. Apparently, we have now learned that we were following due process. However, since July 2019, when that happened, the community of Lee, Spring, Head and Groton has come together as a group to fight this, to say we are going to fight this. It was wrong, we are disgusted, and there's something dodgy going on. Apparently there are other groups who will say that the other votes that happened that evening, apparently I wasn't there because I left in disgust because I was there in the public chamber and I left. They're so angry. There were other votes that night that were completely adrift of what should have happened. It's like everyone was whipped in order to make a certain vote. They were told what to do.
So that was it for you. That was the line in the sand.
But I believe I believe the evidence was there. The evidence was wrong anyway. The evidence to say certain things that Mr. Irvine was saying at that meeting was incorrect. There's things saying that Leeds has got 3 banks. Well, no, it hasn't. It's got 2 cash machines if you're lucky. We have no facilities. There's no infrastructure. There's nothing going on. And that's what we as a community now are going to have to fight for to get that.
They're liars, aren't they, Paul? They're just liars. They're just liars. I mean, I keep using this term, and I don't use this term in any other context of my life. But they're just liars. You look at what's going on. It's just it's not even a misunderstanding. It's just a lie. It's an outright lie.
Well, it's a blatant lie. Yeah. It's disgusting. It's outrageous. So to me personally, by doing the fundraising with Save Our Valleys, and I've since
let me pause you. So you left that meeting.
So I left that meeting.
You and a group of people came together, and Save Our Valleys was born. Yeah. So it's genuine community focus, no politics. Yeah.
Yeah. So in August 2019, Save Our Valley was born because you've got to bear in mind that there was a councillor there, Steve Hewitt, who he actually stood against the whip of the Labour Party in order to fight for Save Our Valleys, to fight for the valleys. He fought for that area. And I've since known that it's been deselected twice.
So Steve Hewitt is I know Steve. So Steve is an old-fashioned Labour bloke, yeah, and he's loyal to the party, and they shafted him because he couldn't vote with it because he knew the people he represented were so against it he couldn't vote with it, and so they kicked him out. Yeah.
Yeah, effectively, yeah. So somebody who has put the years in, the service in, he stood against the whip, and they kicked him out straight away. I think that's outrageous. That, to me, the dedication towards your community is something that you need to fight for. But that's.
So my understanding when I last spoke to Steve Hewitt was, I sat next to him when I spoke to him. He wasn't standing again because he was deselected. He's had the whip removed. He's been deselected, and they, when the elections were meant to be in May, they had a young lad called Sam selected. I forget his surname, and he was selected, and the first time I saw Sam, and this is the Labour Party, people. This is your Labour Party. This is Sean Fielding's Labour Party right here. And it's on the webpage. It's actually on the Oldham webpage, or his Wikip's page, or whatever it is. And he brought it to my attention. I'd missed it. So this young lad got up and asked some stupid question. And Sean Fielding got up, and the theatre was played out. But the question was designed... it was kept secret that the young lad who was asking the question was actually the Labour Party candidate at the time for Leeds. And it was just a time filler to kill time so Debbie Cole couldn't ask a question on the grooming gangs. Yeah. Because it's limited to 15 minutes. And, sorry, I won't swear, but they played it out. They knew what they were doing. Oh, and then he got caught. He got caught and he resigned, or he withdrew straight away. And I think it was just set up to be a stooge, another Labour Party stooge. Yeah. Come and be accountable. Because this is the whip, isn't it? It's the whip you talk about. If you're a stooge and all you want to be is councillor, or all you want to be is a councillor and use it as a stepping stone in your career to be something else and something else, you just do what they say, won't you? You'll take your $6,000 or your $9,000, all the other benefits, and off you go. But you're not that, are you? And the Proud of Oldham Saddleworth, because you guys disagree amongst yourselves, and it's fine. I enjoy watching it because you all stand up independently for the areas you come from.
Yeah. I have absolutely no political ambition whatsoever. I don't want to be in the Houses of Parliament. I don't want to be the shadow for transport or anything like that.
Oh, he wants to be Prime Minister. Mark my words. Jim McMahon wants to be Prime Minister.
Yeah, of course he does. All I want to do is look after the people in my... if I were to be successful in this ward of Saddleworth, Western Leeds, that's all I want to do.
And tell me about the letter you wrote, because you wrote a letter or something, or you made a public statement.
I did, yeah. Let me just look this up. Hang on, just bear with me. So I sent I initiated a petition to the community to say that. Hang on, just bear with me. So I initiated this petition in order to say that I believe that certain areas of Oldham, because there are certain areas, because Councillor Sean Fielding said that there would be a £150 rebate for all those people who are on benefits. So I said, is it not fair that instead of certain areas of Oldham, that if they were to have a rebate, would it not be fair for all areas to have a rebate? Because bearing in mind, during the COVID crisis, most services were not running because I didn't have my bins collected for 6 weeks. And you've got people on 0-hour contracts.
Yeah, they're exploiting the bin, man.
bin.
Absolutely, yeah.
Exactly. So what am I paying for? I'm paying for nothing. So I was going to the tip myself when it was open because the tip was closed. So what was I going to do? They were going to take my rubbish away. So effectively, we're looking at some kind of post-apocalyptic situation where when we're going to take my rubbish, what's going on? We've got vermin.
So what you said was that you wrote back to Sean Fielding, or you put a petition out, and it was very much saying instead of some people getting a rebate, everyone should get a rebate.
So I said certain areas. Now, Councillor Sean Fielding, he said to me, it would be racist to say that's
I've just
racist
put that up.
comment.
I've just put the comment up, so go on. Yeah, you go for it.
So can you see that? I can't see that.
Yeah, I've got it on the screen, yeah.
If you could just read out that.
So let me read it for you. I also note the blatant racism in the suggestion that this will go to certain parts of Oldham.
So to me, my comment was certain areas. That's areas where you would expect people to have a council tax benefit. Well, a council benefit.
So that's just as likely as Shoulder as it is Limeside, as it is Coldhurst.
That could be anywhere. So it's all over the place. Yeah. So by definition, council feeding is kind of pinpointing certain areas where he is possibly working to create a benefit. So that to me is some kind of racism on the back foot, if you can.
Well, what it is it's to shut down opposition, isn't it? And they've messed up since I've come along. They've really struggled with this, and you can see it. They can call me racist. They can call my friend Moyeb racist. They can call us far right supporters, but no one believes it. And it's wrong. And it's wrong. And I shouldn't be laughing, but it's wrong because your values are probably identical to mine, and the only thing that separates you and I is the colour of our skin. So the tag of racism sticks to you more than it would me, because most people look at me and just laugh at it. But would you? Because you're a white bloke of a certain age, it's wrong.
Right,
it's wrong.
We are the same as each other. We're fine. That's what I mean. So, and then bearing in mind my history, I working on the streets of the Asian parts of Oldham, working on the predominantly white areas of Oldham, working with the different ethnic minorities in Oldham, like Eastern Europeans, etc. Racism is a different thing. You can't forget all the different cultures that are here, and you have to embrace them all. And that's what I've always done. But then for someone to say that, and not even give me a right to reply, because I've always been blocked by everybody.
Has he blocked you? Has he already blocked you?
He blocked me. He blocked me last year in November 19, just before the election.
He's a kid, isn't he?
He can't converse. As soon as somebody says something you don't like, he blocks you. So I can't even see what he's saying about me because I can't see it.
No, that is it. It's a worse form of cowardice, isn't it?
Exactly.
He's up next year in Fales. He's up next year, and I'll put this up. So and I Warren's going up against him, and I know Mark Wilkinson's going to, it's what I shared this week. Warren, Mark, I think you guys need to sit down sooner rather than later because and I don't really care what he says to you, Warren. I know Fielding talks to you, but I think Fielding's only chance of winning is by making sure you stand, because Warren, you will get votes, and Mark will get votes, and I think between you won't get enough votes, but combined you'd get more than enough votes, and I honestly think that is what Sean Fielding is relying on. So I think that's what's going on there. So do you know who you're up against? Because there's not a Labour councillor, is there? And he's not Hewitt's not standing again, is he? Is Hewitt standing again?
I have a belief who the Lib Dem candidate will be. I don't at this point. If it's the same person from I have to say though, one of my issues that one of the communities raised to me, a member of the community, she has said, is it really fair that the 20 candidates who are up for election should still be involved in decision making? And I actually think that's quite true. That's quite a valid point, that.
They've not got a mandate, have they? They've not got a mandate.
Exactly.
They should sit down and the council should be run by the others. The council should be run by the others. Yeah.
So if there's any majority decisions being made, I don't know what the actual figures are. I would probably think that's probably unfair. It's undemocratic. And we really need to address that situation, because we're not going to have the election until May 21, hopefully. That could even be pushed back. We don't know. We don't know what the plans are for.
Oh no! Come on, you've got to have the elections, because they're a bedrock of our democracy. You can't open a pub and you can't say we can't go to a polling station. I'm not having that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's what I mean. The polling station's a private thing anyway. It's social distancing by de facto.
Yeah.
So that's something that we need to consider.
So let me share with you. I mean, the environment is your big thing, yeah. Let me share with you this. My understanding of this thing called the Greater Manchester Spatial Framework, yeah, the GMSF, and Rocky knows this better than I do, so Rocky might want to put a comment up. But this is how I see it, and I I'm a simple man, but I'm not a stupid man, and this is how I see it. So all these councillors who sit round the table at this Greater Manchester head table with a bloke called Andy Burnham, who I have no time for. I think he's a charlatan. But Andy Burnham's there. And what they're all doing, particularly the Labour ones, is they're horse trading. And what they're doing is the Greenbelt land, the more desirable land, they're going there and saying, we can build on this, we can build on that. And the ones who are more supportive of Andy Burnham's plans are the ones who sit in the inner circle. And because they sit in the inner circle, they'll get fast-tracked and promoted in the Labour Party. Now, let me share with you something I heard. It's a rumour, and I think we're allowed to share rumours. It's not malicious or anything like that. I heard that Sean Fielding has been horse trading away as much of Oldham as possible. So in all the green belt and parts like, I think what's the other one? Stone Breaks or something your way?
Yeah, Stone Breaks. Yeah.
Yeah, the stuff in Greenfield. There's another one your way, another small one your way.
Yeah.
The stuff in Shaw, the stuff in Chadderton.
Yeah, backings of Brookway and Lees, which is, well, quite frankly, I mean, it's such a small area, but it's incited so many people who are against it, because it's such a small area. It's got a few garages on it. It's a bit of green space. It's owned by a certain person. But the kids for generations have played on that area. And then this person, or the person who's put the planning application in, is a 3-story high building where most of the buildings are 2-story high anyway. And it'd just be a complete blot on the landscape. It's like, well, what the hell? You can't really argue about the fact you're going to lose light, because they're the small definitions of a planning. You have to just object to the fact that why are you going to build on this small
Okay, so this is the thing,
piece of
Paul.
land anyway?
They want to build, and people need to understand what's going on here with the Greater Manchester Spatial Framework and what's going on with Oldham Council. Every year, because of the pensions, because of the waste of money, Oldham Council needs more and more money.
Yeah.
And the way to get more and more money is council tax income, yeah? And council tax income works like this. If you build a nice house in Saddleworth or Shaw or some parts of Chadderton, or you get a higher council tax band. But as well as getting a higher council tax band, the people who live in those houses use minimal council resources. So it's a win-win both ways. Now, the problem in our town with that then is the people who need houses in our town will never be able to afford to live in those areas. In fact, most of them don't want to live in those areas. And in the areas where they live, there's derelict mills, factories, loads of brownfield land, that they could build on. But Sean Fielding and his mates don't want to build in the places, the affordable housing that serves the communities in those neighbourhoods. And when they build in those neighbourhoods, they've got these arrangements with these housing associations. And you know, speak to any. I know few of them post. Only Mohammed usually posts, and Moyab sometimes posts. But there's hundreds of Asian guys who listen to this and women who listen to this. They know the dodgy arrangements of the housing associations and how families are promoted, how cartel families with more block votes are promoted higher up on that list than others. So they don't win from that arrangement. And what they need to do in this town, and I'm sure it's the same in every other town like ours, is they need to build affordable houses on the brownfield sites and support people to be able to buy those houses. But instead, they're doing this. And the reason they're doing this is political, because they want to score brownie points with Andy Burnham, and in return, Andy Burnham in the Labour Party will reward them. And this is a rumour I've heard. Sean Fielding is or was being lined up to become the MP for Rochdale, because they were going to shift Tony Lloyd up to the House of Lords, or Tony Lloyd up to the House of Lords. And Sean Fielding, and I've got friends from Rochdale who are listening on this. What do you guys think? You can have him, but as far as I'm concerned, have him. You can have him. You can have Sean Fielding. In fact, I'll put a sticker. Sean Fielding for Rochdale MP. Come on, who's up for that? Get him out of Oldham. Rochdale, all yours.
Jeez, Lib Dems have got a chance again.
They've got no chance. I mean, Howard Sykes has yet to issue a statement clarifying why, Cyril Smith, Rod Blythe, Mark, whatever he was called. There's the longer, but you can't stay silent. It's the same with Jim McMahon and the email to do with Lee Rigby's funeral. They think by staying silent, then attacking me is gonna go away. It's not gonna go away, because you can take me out now if you want. It'll make no difference, because tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of Oldhamers now know the truth. So
all I can say is about Lee Rigby. This is one of the personal experiences I've got. When he was laid to rest, as a police officer, I stood by his grave, looking after, to prevent desecration of his grave. And that was a personal experience. I was stood by his grave all night till midnight until I was relieved of duty. And that was Middleton Cemetery. So, it was a disgusting thing that happened. It was outrageous. But that's my personal link to Lee Rigby. I never met the fella, but it was devastating what happened to him. He served his country, ultimate respect, and he paid a hideous price. And the people who did that, are claiming mental asylum in prison.
Yeah, I spent a career working with people like that. They're not mentally ill at all. They're just evil, and they're looking for a cause, and once they found that cause, they've been brainwashed, or some of them were looking to be brainwashed anyway. Some of them were predisposed that way from the beginning. They're scumbags, and I think we've, unfortunately in our country, I think we've encouraged that. We've tolerated people who will use our democracy to attack our democracy, and then you have the Labour Party, and I'll go on to this, postal votes. Postal votes. NIEL WILBY, or whatever is people are now calling him, was going on about nothing to do with the cartels, nothing to do with postal votes, no evidence. Anyone who knows this town knows everything about postal votes. What's your position on postal votes?
Postal votes, the first thing that needs to happen is we need to have ID identification, like they did in the old days, and then they stopped doing it.
So when you turn up to vote, you have IDs. I think they've introduced that. I think the government has passed that in July. So now when you turn up to the polling station, you've got to go with ID. Don't quote me on that, but from what I read, I think the government have passed that down. So it's the first stage. Of course, I saw Abdul Jabbar, who's the deputy leader of the Labour Party, on one of the Sunday afternoon news shows last year, with the very left-leaning BBC journalists all ranting and raving about how ridiculous it was. And now I sat there thinking, No, it's not unreasonable to ask someone who goes to the polling station to cast a vote to then inform who will be elected to represent our democracy, to identify themselves.
Yeah.
You know, and
But then, I mean, I remember back in the day when I used to vote. Obviously, I've always voted, but I got to the point when I was voting, people were just saying, "What's your name?" Back in the day, you used to present your polling card and say, "This is my polling card,"
yeah.
and that's how they used to check it off. Then it became lax. So then I would always say, "Well, it's fantastic. We have to use ID. That's fantastic, because people will be fraudulent that way." But then it's difficult to say how you control postal votes unless people have got a severe need to not be able to go to a polling station. That has to be absolute completely granite. You have to make it concrete why people can't do a postal vote, because you can't do a block vote. That's outrageous. You can't just loads of people in the household going.
So Leon, and I'll answer this because I don't have many people. I link it to YouTube as well because I was told I need to link it to YouTube. So, but Leon it's my first ever question from YouTube. How are you going to ID postal votes? It's easy, Leon. First of all, you restrict postal votes to only those who need to vote by post. You know, serving soldiers, people who are hospitalised or judged to be infirm with medical notes. We do all of that. But the second thing then is, if postal votes continue, it needs to happen the same as when you go to when you do stuff where your ID is checked. You go to the post office, you go with your postal vote. That's not signed. You hand it over to the guy. He stamps it. You show your ID. Whilst you stood there, you mark it, you put it in the envelope, and you put it in a box so you do something with it. And there's your postal without it being tampered. And I'll tell you why. The cartel generals that I've come across, postal votes operate in a couple of ways. So sometimes you collect postal votes. You go around to people's houses and you collect empty votes that haven't been voted. You know, you just take them over and you cross them. Other times, people collect postal votes where they sit next to you whilst you sign it and cross it and put it in an envelope and they'll take it. It's fraud. It's fraud in a democracy like ours. And for the would-be misogynist name callers out there, the ones who suffer the most from this arrangement is women. In my communities, it's women. They don't have, they're disenfranchised through this process. They don't get to vote. The husband, the brother, whoever takes the votes and decides who's and they'll proudly have a chat in the mosques or the community centres and say, yeah, I've got 10 votes in my house. I've got 20 votes in my house. And they're the custodians of those votes. So you need to get rid of these postal. It needs reform. But it gives, and by my reckoning, it gives both Debbie Abrahams and Jim McMahon, give or take, a 10,000 vote start.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah. Absolutely. So you're going to stand, you're going to knock on doors, Proud of Oldham Saddleworth. Yeah, you're going to, and you're going to juggle it with a serious full-time job.
Too right. Yeah, of course I am. Yes, because I care about the community. I will do absolutely what I can. I have no whip. The only whip I have got is the actual community's voice.
And the reduction in rates, yeah? You want a reduction in rates. How are you going to do that?
Well,
what's your thinking? Yeah, because people laugh. I've been in meetings where and they look at you guys and they laugh at you how people used to laugh at me and they call us idealists, yeah? As though you can't do that because we've got to charge, So how are you going to reduce rates?
Well, there's so much financial waste in the council. There's the 8 million quid that's going out to other areas that are now to do with Oldham. The biggest thing I would want to do is in Leeds, Springhead and Groton is all the businesses there. I've been looking at a reduction in business rates. I've been looking at a council that works with all the businesses to use their services. I'd want, so people are doing taxi companies, catering, whatever. It's all within Oldham that's serving Oldham Council. And then the people in Oldham are getting the benefit of that money, benefit of council tax money, rather than people being outsourced. There's constant outsourcing going on. with Oldham Council. And it's outrageous.
There's millions, isn't there? There's absolutely, and I see Paul Boots puts it up because he's very analytical, Paul, in terms of figures. And I see the stuff. Did you see the stuff the other week? Chronic Oldham put it up, and I don't know Chronic Oldham from Adam before someone accuses me of knowing Chronic Oldham or accuses poor guy of being racist or anything like that. He might even be a woman, actually. I have no idea who Chronic Oldham is. But he put something up a couple of weeks ago about the hundreds of thousands that Oldham Council had paid for Oldham Leisure, the sports halls, to rent them during COVID when they were shut. And I saw something where Fielding, the muppet he is, he put a post up saying, where do you think we're doing our food banks or something up from? And I'm thinking, hold on, the Civic Centre's empty. The Queen Elizabeth Hall's empty. And even if they weren't empty, since when did it cost hundreds of thousands of pounds of yours and my money to hire space to give out food parcels? You're better off giving that money to the people who came. It'd have been better stood outside with £100 vouchers.
It's such a waste.
Yeah.
Well, then again, though, I mean, obviously, some people were stood outside at the beginning of the pandemic who were just hanging around in public, breaking lockdown rules, weren't they? So.
Well, I went to the police station. I mean, I'll share the story properly afterwards. But I went to the police station. I was in on Thursday, and they finally spoke to me about my complaints, not about my concerns. And it was the first step in a multi-step process, and the hanging around, ignoring lockdown rules, the Sean Fielding and Angela Rayner affair that I call it. Where they were out in Fellsworth and they got caught and they were photographed there in a group of 8 or a group of 9 outside the pub. That they admitted to, or Sean Fielding definitely admitted to afterwards. He talked about how he smiled for the camera, so he was, he definitely admitted to being there. And the pub put out that it was pre-arranged, litter cleanup or whatever it was, that they wanted nonsense, but it was unlawful. And the police told me that they would only issue advice at the time. And I came back and me being me, looked it all up, because it's what I do. I type in Google and I look up. No, the police weren't offering advice. They were dragging people into the vans and arresting them at the time. They were, they were investigating Dominic Cummings at the time. Yeah. So no, I'm not having that. As far as I'm concerned, Sean Fielding and Angela Rayner took part in an unlawful action, and I'm going to report it as a crime. If the police decide they don't want to do anything, they can tell me they don't want to do anything, and I'm going to post it. And I know the police listen to this. I'm going to post it, and I'm sure people will use it. If they get fined, if the police come after them, I will share whatever letter the police give me on that, and they can use that, because the law, and this is a serious bit, the law has got to be the same for everyone. The politicians can't be above the law, and you want to become a politician not because you want to be treated more favourably. I'm looking at a genuine bloke here. You're not interested in that. You're not looking for favour by being a politician. You're not looking to personally benefit, are you?
No, not at all. The only benefit I want is the happiness of the local community. That's all I care about. I want everybody to be so happy in their community that they live in, and then as long as they feel safe, they are prosperous, and I'll do everything I can in order to do that. That's all I can say, really. You can't stress how much a simple thing is of just making people happy. There's no hidden agenda with me.
No, you're going to serve your community, aren't you, Paul? And you're going to win. I think the people of your of Leeds and what is it? Leeds, Groton, Saddleworth West. What's it? What's the area
Leeds,
called?
Springhead, and Groton.
Leeds, Springhead, and Leeds, Springhead, and Groton. I mean, I think they've had enough. I think it's clear they've had enough.
Well, exactly. I mean, since I have to say that the community spirit, I mean, obviously part of the committee for Save Our Valleys, that's something that's still waiting to be decided upon, because we managed to get a judicial review. But the issue, the actual community spirit that was generated from that fundraising in order to get to that point has been fantastic, because it's helped the Groton Residents Association. Their events of the number of people who've turned up to that has been absolutely amazing. The band contest of last year was fantastic. Unfortunately, we didn't do it this year. Unfortunately, we've missed out on the events we could have done this year because of the COVID. But I think the community spirit that's been generated has been amazing. And And I'd just like to thank everybody for that as well. And hopefully, I'd like to serve you all. I'd like to serve all the people of Leeds, Bringhead, and Groton.
No, Paul, it's what I said to all of you guys who come on. I'm more than happy to support you. In fact, it warms me, and then I get so many messages afterwards of these interviews we do with people like you, and it warms all of us because we're in a dark place and we think we're alone, and we're not. And then people like you come along, and you stick your neck out and say, no, we're not going to stand for this anymore. And I don't need to be a politician. I don't need to have done this fancy degree here or something else for. I'm an ordinary working bloke or an ordinary working woman. I'm going to make a difference in the neighbourhood where I live, and that's what local politics should be about.
Definitely. I mean, one of the major things I've always said: transparency, accountability. I will always be transparent. I will always be accountable. You can ask me why I've not done something, why I have done something, or why I've not done something. I will always be accountable to the electorate. They're the people, if I was successful, who voted me in, and I will look after their needs constantly. I will always do that. That's all I care about.
Paul, thanks. Anything else you want to say before I let you go?
No.
No. Listen, I'm always grateful to you guys because you give up your Sunday nights. You promote everything I say. I share. You share it everywhere. And because of you guys is why I'm so safe. And I'm, because if I was on my own, these guys would have, they would have battered me by now. It's clear to me. They would have, or the police would have arrested me. But I have got so many ordinary people like you who are standing alongside me, and I'm grateful. And I'll stand alongside each and every one of you, and we'll get our town back. We'll get our town back from these guys. Really, really thank you. Paul.
Thank you, Fishers.
No, brilliant. I'm going to put I want to put your thing back on. I want to put your name back on there, Paul Shilton, and you're Proud of Oldham Saddleworth. Thank you very, very much. Okay.
Thank you, Roger. Thank you. Good night.
Take care. Good night. So, cool guy. I think, wow. Definite. Now, this should happen if this works now. Press that. Yeah. And is it going to show messages? It should do, but it might not. It's been one of those evenings with this equipment, but apparently it was meant to display messages as it comes up, but it's not doing, so never mind. Right, what was I going to share with people? I'm going to put some comments up. I'm going to drag some comments across, so give me 1 second and I'll... there you go. It's coming up now. So if people are now putting comments up for Paul, please do, and it'll come across. So, yeah, it's a genuine bloke, isn't he? I've met him a few times in the Liberal Club in Springhead, and I know he's also recently got married, and he still wants to serve. It's admirable. I think it's really, really admirable that this men, women like Paul, they come forward. So next week, and I'll bring this. I'll share this with you. Next week, I'm hoping to get on a guy who's on the run from the cartels, and there's no other way of describing it. It's called Abdul, and what Abdul did is he's the one who leaked the information that I shared to do with the £10,000 grants. And the £10,000 grants, and at the time, the council's own webpage said 1 grant per property. And then Abdul leaked that 4 or 5 businesses and samosa sheds on Featherstone Road and all the rest of them, those sort of streets, the cartel-run businesses across the town were benefiting extensively. And since he released that, he called me this week and he said he's had to give up his job because the cartels have found out where he works, and he's had to go into hiding and get a job somewhere else because they went after him, and the police phoned him on his mobile phone, so he's had to get rid of his mobile phone. He offered the police, according to him, he's happy to chat to him as long as he can go Facebook Live. He's not under arrest or anything. They just wanted to chat with him, and they've done that with me at the beginning, and they shouldn't really be doing this, but they wanted to chat with him apparently. And he's on the run. So he's on the run, and he's also found out he's got a couple of insiders in Oldham Council. And it seems that the insiders in Oldham Council have given him more information. So we're going to get Abdul on next week, and he will, well, if a third of what he's found out comes out as true, it's devastating for this council. And I can only judge him by what he's released so far. And before he told me what he did, I was under the impression that one business per building was getting grants. And then after that, we found out it's more than one business, and a lot of these businesses were interconnected, and they were getting 40, 50, 60, 70,000, and it's a lot of people have done very well out of COVID. The cartels have done very, very well out of COVID. Now, what else was I going to share with you? I think Paul will get voted in. Yeah, I definitely think Paul will. I don't know what I've done there. Oops. There you go. I think Paul. I definitely do think Paul will get voted in. As soon as we get one in, we'll get another in, and the Labour Party are finished in Oldham. It'll take us time, but they're finished in Oldham, and brilliant news. Conservatives, absolutely brilliant news. I never thought that the day would come when I'd be sat somewhere calling my own party all sorts of names and applauding the Conservatives. I can't wait to see who votes which way in the next council meeting, because I'm going to name every one of you. I'm going to name every one of you and which way you voted, because in a democracy we're allowed to do that. So Sean Fielding, Arud Shah, Abdul Jabbar, Dr. Chauhan, Riaz, all of you, every one of you. I'm going to name all of you, and whether you voted for an independent inquiry or whether you continued to support this sham of an investigation. And it's not an investigation, or is it an investigation? Because I know someone tried to ask a question and it was rejected because you've decided it's now is an investigation, when all this time you've been calling it an inquiry. You can't even make your own mind up on what you want to call it. So we'll see. But I can't wait for this council meeting now. I was really worried, and when I read Brian Holbin's message earlier on this week, and I was dejected, really. So well done to the Conservatives. I'm grateful. I'm grateful you've done that, and I think those two young lads in particular who were then targeted by Sean Fielding have done really, really well, and the others have. I think is his name Lewis, who's the chairman of the Conservatives. Lewis, if we ever meet, I will buy you a drink, mate. Because I don't care what persuasion you are or what your politics are. If you stand by the people of this town who oppose the grooming and gang rape of our children, then you're all right as far as I'm concerned. Right, the police. I went to the police on Thursday. For a pre-arranged meeting with Detective Inspector somebody, and I won't mention his name, it's not fair, but I went for a meeting, and there were two lovely police officers. I sat in a room with them for an hour or so, and I meant to get them a whole host of information back. They'd clearly been briefed. I think that's fair. They'd clearly been briefed, and they knew more than they were letting on. So this is my position. I know that the police will resist charging politicians. I know they will. They've already said they're not really interested in Debbie Abrahams, although I think she falsified evidence, and doctored evidence, or whatever the technical phrase is. But she presented a version of facts that weren't the facts, particularly when you chop out big chunks of what I said and take it into the police station. So that was Debbie, but I don't think we'll get much traction there, but I'll still put it in. The Arud Shah incident is very, very interesting, and because it also involves Jim McMahon, and that's the sale of Glodic baths. And the police let something slip in that conversation with me. The police said to me, the sale was agreed before Purdah, or the sale was agreed beforehand. And I made it very clear. It doesn't matter when the sale was agreed. It's when it was sold. Because it was sold days before the election, and the Ghazali Trust went online and amongst their friends and said a deal had been done with the council for Glodic baths. days before an election. Why do we have purdah? Now, I know I have council officers and Labour Party people, what's he called? Captain Underpants has come out and said amongst the 16 that watch me, 4 of them are from the Labour Party. Tell me, politicians, why do we have purdah? Which one of you is going to defend the sale of a public asset to a community organisation that one of the candidates had already declared an interest in days before an election? Because where I come from, that looks like a bribe. So I'll send that off to him and we'll see where we go with that. But we're not going to give up on this. We're going to force that through. Other things, Debbie. Yes, Debbie, tell us about the police. Oh, the police tried to tell me it was a council matter. The harassment by Sean Fielding in his official capacity as leader of the council was a council matter, but it wasn't a council matter, is it? It's misconduct in public office. It's malicious communication, or at the very least, it's harassment. And you know who we bumped into at the police station? I'll tell this story, and I'm sure Jane won't mind. I bumped into Jane Barker at the police station. Now, Jane and I hadn't arranged to meet at the police station, but she popped in and she saw me and she said hello, and I'd never met Jane before in my life. And I saw something that put a massive smile on my face play out. Here was this, and I mean this with respect, Jane. Here was this lovely middle-aged woman who'd come in with a bag, and she wasn't sure what to do because she didn't look like she was familiar in a police station, and she pressed the buzzer to get through, and the guy was trying to fob her off, and she wasn't going because I could hear everything taking place whilst I was waiting, and the only reason I could hear whilst I was waiting was because the police officer who was meant to see me was 20 minutes late. So that's the only reason why Jane and my paths crossed, and she refused to leave, and she kept repeating all the what she was told. What had happened, and she'd gone in with all her evidence. And I called Jane afterwards because I got called away. But I loved how this woman, if you want to talk about the suffragettes, if you want to talk about Annie Kenney, that is the personification of those individuals, is people like Jane. Mild-mannered, lovely, ordinarily wouldn't say boo to a goose, but refused to be intimidated, refused to leave, right is right, wrong is wrong, and there she was. And I called her afterwards, and apparently they only gave her a log number. But she carried on, and now it seems that she's got a crime reference number, I think, Jane. And this process has started where he's been investigated for, I think, malicious communication, but it'll have to be more than that. It wasn't, harassment. Harassment, I think, is what Jane said. But it's got to be more than that. And I know the others are going in. I know Mark's going in. I know his daughter's going in. I know Moyab's going in. I know, so they're all going in. I know Debbie's been and seen a solicitor and had conversations there. I know Paul's going to destroy Sean Fielding. Sean, you're buggered, mate. Paul Boots is absolutely going to finish you. He really is. You picked the wrong fight there with the wrong person. And as for me, I went through all the things that Sean Fielding did, and you could see they couldn't quite believe it. I was chatting to the police, and they couldn't quite believe it. And every time they tried to defend him or say something that might mitigate it, it didn't stack up. And that's the simple thing with the truth. The truth is really straightforward. Now, what Sean Fielding did, or one of the things that Sean Fielding did with me, was he wrote to Mark's employers, and I've got the paperwork, and he wrote to Mark's employers. And he made reference to that apparently I am under investigation from a police operation. And he named the police operation. He named it as Operation Hexagon. And if you type Operation Hexagon in Google, the only place it comes up is in the terms of reference of the grooming gangs. Now, I know I'm not a groomer. Or I've never been accused of anything like that. I've never, it's not my world. So what is the terms of reference of Operation Hexagon that Sean Fielding has accused me of being investigated under? Why is it in the terms of reference of the grooming gang investigation of his? Now, it gets even more worse for Sean Fielding. Because the police tried to say, well, you were under investigation. I said, no, I wasn't. You brought me in, questioned voluntarily regarding something Debbie Abrams said. Now, as far as I'm concerned, she's made it up, and you're going to charge me, get around to charging me, because I'd love to be in court. Put me in court. Put me in court, and I'll have Debbie Abrams in court as well. Any day. Go on, bring it on. But the police tried to fudge it, and I'm like, no, Sean Fielding has no right to disclose to a third party that I am under police investigation or police surveillance. Even if it's true, he has no right. And not only does he not have a right to do that, he has no right to name the operation that is investigating him, because it makes it sound more serious. Operation Hexagon, Pentagon, bloody what, triangle, call it whatever you want. I don't care. I'm not a criminal. And that's the thing. I don't care, because I'm not a criminal. And these guys, when will they learn? The leader of the council breached a whole host of policies and procedures in his own council and in partnership agreements with the police to have disclosed to a third party that I am subject to an investigation. This is going to play out, and it'll play out. But we're not going to let them go, because there is no way they're getting away with this. Any other points? Anything else? Let me see. Is there anyone else to say anything before I wrap up for the evening? I'm afraid. I'm sorry actually for me, I'm sorry my credits didn't work, because they kind of give me a break and a breather to sip a bit of my hot drink. But thank you very much to Paul for joining us. Thank you to all of you who've joined us. I've not actually looked to see if there's a 16. No, there's not 16. There's the other side of 100 looking at this right now. And yeah. I'll see you all next week. I'll see my patrons on Thursday. That's not illegal. We can gather. We can chat amongst ourselves. Andy, I'm going to put this up because I've got it in black and white, lad. An email from the leader of Oldham Council referencing this. Yeah. Oldham Heart. What you want me to talk about Oldham Heart, Debbie? What do you want me to say? Paul, what's he called? Paul Taylor is a moron. Absolute moron. Why is he giving NIEL WILBY a platform? It's not the old people who support Oldham Heart. It's not on them, because they are looking for a platform. They are looking to support independence. But Paul, I've seen the comment you I've seen the comment you shared and what you said about You got my number, Paul. You can get hold of me. Same as everyone else. It's very easy. And until then, no, we're never going to fear this lot. Thank you very, very much.